Il Cannes Italian Festival vi presenta una raccolta di interviste sulle nostre radici italiane in Australia, con una raccolta di testimonianze da parte dei nostri anziani e le loro storie di immigrazione. Abbiamo deciso di registrare proprio qua, in questo posto, perché nella metà degli anni 50 è arrivata una delle prime barche che ha portato con sé tanti italiani emigrati e insieme ai miei colleghi Michael e Martina vi racconteremo le loro vicissitudini, storie che sembrano lontane ma che in realtà hanno sempre un punto di attualità. Buona visione.
We're here with Sam Garozzo, who's going to tell us his story of migration to Australia.
Yep.
So let's start way back when where were you from? Where were you born?
1937.
Yeah.
We left Italy with a boat called Viminale, and it took us 45 days to get here. It was like a snail. The boats used to see them in the distance, they catch up to us and leave us behind.
Wow.
And we arrived in Brisbane. We came by train to Gordonvale.
Straight away?
Yeah, pretty well, yeah.
Wow.
Well, and then my auntie picked us up in Gordonvale.
And who was that? Was that your mum's sister?
My mum's sister.
So she was already here?
She was already here. And that was in Alumba.
Yeah.
She was living. So I actually went to Merrill School for a couple of months, and then we shifted to my uncle, my mum's brother, in Little Mulgrave.
So that all your mum's siblings were already here?
Yeah.
She was the only one that
She was
stayed
the
in
only
Italy?
one, yeah.
And then they said to her...
And she had another sister in America.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so why do you think she chose Australia instead of going to America?
Well, because she had two of them here,
It was
one in America.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what were they doing here? Why did they come?
Well, her sister had a small cane farm in Babinda,
Okay.
very small cane farm, and her brother was cutting cane.
Okay.
He was a labourer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so let's go back to Italy really quickly. So where were you in Sicily? Is that where you came from?
Yeah, Sant'Alfio.
Sant'Alfio.
Yeah.
And where did you board the ship? Was it from Messina? Is that where it left?
Brought to the ship in Napoli.
Oh, in Naples. Okay.
Napoli.
Okay. And so what was the motivation for your mum to come here to her siblings?
Because her relations were here. Yeah.
And so they called her to come, and in those days they could sponsor her to come?
Yeah, yep.
And so you landed in Gordonvale? Is that right? Straight from Sant'Alfio, and then what happened in the next years?
Well, from when we landed in Gordonvale, we stayed in Alumba with my auntie for a couple of months, and then we moved to Little Mulgrave, where my uncle was, my mum's brother.
Yeah.
And so while we're there, my uncle had a friend who was a farmer, and he got my mother together
With this farmer?
with my mum. And it was very close by, it was only about a kilometre away. So he looked after my mum very well. And
Because was your mum working? Because
No.
being alone, was she working or?
she was working in Italy, yeah,
And what about-
picking nocciole or
Okay.
stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
She was a hard worker.
Yeah.
She was a hard worker.
And then was she working on the farm here?
Oh, she would help.
She would help out.
Yeah.
Okay.
She wasn't doing much, but she was help. You wouldn't stop her working. She was always busy. Yeah. And then she became pregnant, and she had a child. She went to hospital, and she had difficulty delivering the child, and they should have gave her a cesarean. They didn't, and the child passed away inside her, poisoned her system, and she passed away.
And how old were you?
She was I was 9.
So freshly arrived in
Freshly
Australia,
arrived, yeah.
and you've lost your mum, and
Yeah.
that's the only person you had.
Yeah.
And so then what happened?
Well, my auntie looked after me
Yeah.
for a while, and I went to school with my cousin. He was a boy, and went to school at Little Mulgrave, Mount View Hotel, and I got to 4th grade, and then the war broke out in 1939, so they interned my stepfather, and there was no one, so he had 2 paisani looking after the farm while he was interned. So about 12 months after, they interned them because they weren't naturalised.
Oh God.
So they took me out of school. I was 13 years old, and to look after the farm. So I stayed on the farm till I was 18, and the only way I could go out anywhere was work on the farm and do spare work on neighbouring farms, chipping, keeping the cane clean. I used to get £1. I always had senior wages, £1 a day those days was. $2 a day, those senior wages. And yeah, so I used to love dancing, I used to horse riding, and then my stepfather came back from internment camp, and I stuck with him till I was 18. I helped him on the farm, and one day I said to him, "Is there a future here for me?" And he said, "The road is free. You can go, you know."
So this man that would have had the child with your mum, he ended up looking after, like he stuck by you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, so he said the road is free, so I went elsewhere to get a job, and I called in a friend, Italian bloke. He was from Veneto.
Yeah.
And I told him my story, and he said straight away, he said, wages are £5 a week, we'll give you £7.10 a week, and we'll cook for you for 30 shillings a week, and you stay with us.
And what kind of job was that?
Looking after farming.
Farming.
Cane farming, anything to do. Cane cutting, anything, as long as I worked. And I stayed with him for about 3 years.
And where was that?
There was Little Mulgrave also.
As well, okay.
And then I got a job in the brewery. I thought I'd change jobs. So I got a job in the brewery. Well, when I was on the farm on my own, I was shit scared naturally. It was only 13. And I had 2 dogs sleeping beside my bed.
So you got left there alone because everyone else had gone to war. They'd been called
Yeah.
interned in a camp.
Yeah.
So you were left there to run the farm?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I couldn't cook. The only thing I could cook was eggs. I used to have 12 eggs a day.
Oh my God.
Because I used to have, 3 in the morning, 6 in the morning, 3 for breakfast, 3 for my coffee, 3 for lunch, and 3 for 12 a day. The chooks used to lay eggs everywhere. So I couldn't cook. I was only bloody 13.
And how long did that go on for?
Well, that went for about 6 months or so. So one day it was pouring rain, and where I used to sleep there was an overhang.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, all these people came in the middle of the night. And I got my torch and I shone my torch. I seen all these people, the soldiers they were, because we had the camp. They had the camp at the Mountain View Hotel. They're the
American soldiers.
Americans, the dance hall they made into a hospital. And they said, don't worry, we're just getting out of the rain, you know, because they're doing exercise. And they're very nice to me. So from then on, you know, there's sugar was rationed, bacon was rationed, everything was rationed, but they just supplied me with everything, you know.
They looked after you because they knew you were
beautiful.
there by
They
yourself.
were beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah, they were beautiful, you know. So yeah, so that was nice. That was a lucky break, you know.
That I can't believe.
Yeah,
13 on your own
yeah,
on the
yeah.
farm.
The Japanese, yeah, they shifted all to Atherton. My uncle and all. One of my uncles looking after us.
Yeah.
That's before I went on the farm.
This is before they got taken.
Yeah, before I went on the farm, because the Japanese had come to Darwin.
And so the
Yeah,
fear was that
were
they
gonna
might
take
come
it,
here.
yeah.
Oh gosh.
So we moved up there for about a month, I think, or so, up at Atherton. Then when the danger was over, we came back home. Yeah,
Gosh,
yeah.
you were so brave and.
yeah. But that's how it was those days, you know.
So then we're on the farm. The Americans have come. They've given you food.
Yeah. I got a job at the brewery,
Yep.
and didn't suit me. I was like being in jail,
Really?
you know, locked up. I never had a job, indoor job.
So you missed the farm, even though it was
Yeah,
hard.
I did. I used to just fill up the kegs of beer and roll them into the cool room. That's what it was, you know. It's just monotonous. So I
Was
decided.
it easier though? Was it easier than working
yeah,
on
it was no different. I decided to go cane cutting then. So I rode my push bike to Gordon Vale. This was on a Monday. And I went and saw the cane inspector. And he blew me up. Jack Clark was his name. And he said, "You come to see me on now." He said, "Don't you realise that Friday 200 men didn't get a job? We didn't have enough work for them, and you want a job now." I said, "Well, I just gave you the option if you can help me out." Anyway, he scratched his head and he said, "Yeah, all right, I'll get you a job." And he got me on a gang with 4 other people, right where Woolworths is building this centre now.
Yep.
And it was the best season of my life. We had five of us, and we had a beautiful year. Wages we were making up to £5 a day,
Wow.
and I was only really skinny. All the others were giant compared to me, but I was very fast at cutting. And another bloke, he was like a bulldozer loading. It was all shoulder loading.
Yeah,
You had to load the cane. So I'd get beside his row of cane. When he got left behind, I'd hop in and help him out, and he'd load beside my truck. When I'd get behind, he'd help me. It was a wonderful season.
Okay.
So I gathered £1,000 I saved,
Wow.
you know, and
And that's a lot of money
A lot
in
of-
those
those
days.
days, it was a lot of money.
So did you live with them and they?
they had barracks those days.
Yeah.
Yeah, the barracks. And the farmer's wife used to cook for me. I used to pay so much. So I don't know how I did it, but at 21, I bought my first property in Bartle Freo. I don't know how I did it. I come to think of it now, and I really don't know. And I bought 90 acres of land, a truck, a small home, for £850.
Oh my goodness. So what you'd managed to put away in that season?
yeah.
Wow.
£850. And it's the worst decision of my life. I never worked so hard. I really worked hard for 10 years. But I made a go of it. And I had a cane assignment which I grew cane. Then my neighbour was growing pineapples, which he's doing well. So I started growing pineapples. And I was growing pineapples, they were up to £5 each in weight. It was huge pineapples. And couldn't sell them locally, so we found a market in Sydney, and it was fantastic. First year, I cleared all my debts out of 3 acres. I got £5 a case, which is like $50 today. And I said, whoopee, you know?
Yeah.
3 acres, I planted 15 acres. Well, when I went to harvest them, I didn't even get enough for the bloody freight. The price went down, so I said to my good wife, And there was another thing, the spray we used to use to kill the grass
Yeah.
was pretty stony. Used to affect me,
Yeah.
and I used to be, I'd have a mask, long overalls, like someone going to Mars. And I said to my good wife, I said, if we don't get out of here, I'll die, you know. So we decided to sell out and get out.
Okay.
When the bank manager came to give this bloke the money, he said, I've been in pineapple country, I've never seen pineapples like these. So he got the money straight away. But I only sold out for £3,000. But anyway, I was glad to get out of it.
So by this point, you've met your wife?
Yeah, well...
And where did you...
Yeah,
how
I
did
met
that
my
come
wife.
about?
I met my wife in Babinda at a dance hall.
Okay.
Yeah. And
was she also paisana?
yeah. So those days you had to go and ask the old people for their hand, not the girl, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So...
and so in which period did that happen? While you were working on the cane farm at Gordonvale?
No, it was when I was working on the farm, on my farm.
On your farm, so
yeah.
way before, okay.
Yeah. When I was working at the other farm, I had a girlfriend, a school girlfriend. We went together for 4 years, but we, could see we weren't going to make it.
That's pretty advanced for back in those days.
Yeah.
Normally the first one you meet, you marry, and that's done.
We couldn't. So mutual agreement, we said, we'll break it up, and there was no argument, nothing. It was just, we're still friends up till today.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's such a cool story.
Yeah.
Was she Italian as well?
Yeah. And then...
and so then your wife came with you to work on the
well, then after
farm?
that, about the girlfriend, after I met another one in Tully, her name was Alfina too, same as well. And all going well, they couldn't do enough for me. So one day they said, we want to come and have a look at your farm. I said, oh, good. So I killed a couple of chooks and got it ready, they're coming to see me. So next thing, her uncle and father turns up. I said, where's Alfina? He said, oh, you're not meant for each other. I said, oh, well.
And they decided
They knocked the socks out of me. So that was it. So then, that's how I went to weddings shortly after and met my present wife, Alfina. So,
was her name Alfina as well?
Yeah.
So, tre Alfine.
Two Alfina, one Rini. So she thought I didn't like her. I did like her. And she said, because after I'd broken off with this other one, I thought I've had enough of it. So anyway, I liked her and I couldn't hold back. So I packed enough courage. I went and seen the old people. I said, I'm interested in your daughter. I said, all right. So they let me in the house. So we went together for 2 years, but my mother-in-law, I don't know what she thought I was going to do to her daughter, but she was so strict.
Oh, really?
It was just incredible strict. We couldn't talk to each other. We couldn't go anywhere. If we went to the pictures, they'd have to be with us. It was just 2 years of this we had. Anyway.
And then they trusted you?
Beg pardon?
Then they started to trust you?
Yeah, well, at the end then we won them over and we got married. We had no money. We were broke. So I killed all my chooks I had and they killed theirs, and we got some people to cook for us. We had a beautiful 300 people wedding.
300 people?
Yeah, at Mirrawinny Hall.
Yeah, right. Standard Italian, 300 people.
Had no money to, we had no money to go anywhere that night, so I had a bomby old car and we drove, the lights went off it when I wanted to get in the car to go home. It was close to their farm where we were living.
Yeah.
So we drove home with a holding a torch beside the car. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So next day, for our honeymoon, we got £50 donation, and that's all we had for our honeymoon. And that took us to Cooktown and back.
Wow.
You know? And we had enough money when we got back to buy fish and chips on the Esplanade and go home. And we did that, and that was...
And what was Cairns like in those days?
Oh, it's nothing there.
Nothing.
About 20,000 people.
And Cooktown must have taken you
There's nothing
ages.
there.
Nothing, yeah.
I climbed up the hill. I got pneumonia, ended up in hospital.
On your honeymoon?
Yeah, that was the joke of the year, you know.
No.
So I said, couldn't you take it, you know?
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, anyway, all well.
And did you then end up living in Cairns?
I was...
Or did you always stay out at Gordon Vale?
No, we were still on the farm.
Yep.
So when we sold out, my wife's parents were in Brisbane,
Yep.
so we moved to Brisbane.
Okay.
So I registered for unemployment on Friday, and I was talking to a chap. He says, "Where you come from?" I said, "I come from North Queensland." He said, "Mate, you won't get a job here. I've been out of work for 6 months." Anyway, by Monday I had 2 jobs. I had a job at Nams Rubber Factory, and I had a jobs at the markets unloading trucks at night. So I had 2 jobs.
Wow.
And I kept that going. And my wife had a job. She was very good at sewing. She used to make bras for the women.
Wow.
And she was, after they made so many, they'd be on a bonus. So she was earning more money than me then.
Wow.
That was good. And prior to that, transport, a friend of mine worked in where they have the old cars, you know, salvage the old cars.
Yep.
He said, "I've got an old Renault." He says, if you want to buy it, it's £50, but if you want to buy it, I'll do it up for you, and it'll cost you £100. I said, "Yeah, all right." So he done this little Renault up. For £100 I brought it. I used to take the wife to work, and I'd go to work. We drove everywhere, to Stanthorpe, we drove over Brisbane, everywhere. And a friend of mine came along, he says, "You want to sell your Renault?" I said, "Yeah." So I sold it to him, and he drove it all the way back to Cairns and still sold it for £100.
No way. What a
It's
story.
just unbelievable.
And can I ask, when did you first go back to Italy? Did you have any desire, considering you came here so young?
No, not really. Well, I had desire, but I didn't know where to go, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't know where to go.
Did you know where you came from?
Yeah, of
You-
course.
you
Yeah,
knew,
yeah,
you
yeah,
remembered-
Yeah. I remembered everything, yeah.
But you had no contacts.
I had no contact.
No.
So my mother-in-law's relation,
Yeah.
when we went back, we went to theirs.
Yeah,
So,
right.
My wife's cousin, she said, "I'll take you to Puntalazzo," because it's where my father came was Puntalazzo.
Okay.
You know, next town up from Sandalfio.
Okay.
Yeah. So they took us there, and we got there, and I asked the bloke, Garozzo, he says, "I got nobody here." Oh, I says, "Hang on, they're in church." He says, "Wait a second, wait till I come out of church." 1 minute I had nobody, and next minute I had bloody relations everywhere.
And did they remember
Yeah,
you?
yeah, but they didn't know where I was because the war broke out. We lost
Yeah.
completely all contact.
And they wouldn't have known about your mum either.
No.
So who was there?
Well, I had my cousin, first cousin,
Yeah.
and other relations which...
Were there grandparents or anything still
No.
around?
So, yeah, they all wanted us to go to their house, you know. It
Was that
beautiful.
quite emotional for
Oh,
you?
extra emotional.
Yeah.
Very emotional.
Yeah.
Very emotional.
Did you recognise
No, I didn't know.
Sant'Alfio or did you
No,
remember?
no,
It was
no,
all
no.
different.
Different, yeah.
The 50s was the first time you went
Yeah,
back.
Yeah. No, it was very emotional.
Yeah.
So, anyway, then going to Brisbane, a friend of mine, my wife's uncle was working for a firm, wholesale firm, selling Italian food.
Oh.
And he said, I'm going to North Queensland cane cutting. You want to take my job? I said, I'd love to. So I went and saw the boss, and he said, yeah, you're welcomed. So I started working with this firm, and they put me canning molasses, and a week there he says, how do you like the job? I said, well, to be quite honest, I said, I don't like it at all. He says, he said, we'll have to change it then, eh? So he put me selling on the floor, selling. I loved it. I loved selling.
So did they have like a shop or
Yeah,
something?
yeah,
where
wholesale.
It was wholesale. Okay.
Wholesale. That's to sell to the. And anyway, I got on so well that the Italians were thieving from them, walking out with stuff without paying for it. I couldn't resist. I had to report them, Anyway.
Typical Italians, hey?
Yeah.
Coming in thinking they can.
Yeah, disgrace.
That's funny.
It was a disgrace. Big six of Italian provolone walking out.
And was that because the other staff were being shifty and they were just saying,
Anyway, I was there for about 12 months, and he says, do you want the job of managing cans? Well, they were right up the alley.
So these guys already had
A business in cans.
A business in
Mario's
cans.
Gourmet Foods,
Okay.
they called it. So I came up here.
Because that would have been handy coming back home.
I was right up my alley. And
Was that sort of the first food supplier in Cairns, do you
it
think?
used to be Fiorelli.
Before them?
As well as.
Oh, as well as.
As well as that.
Fiorelli, okay.
Yeah.
What year are we talking?
1962.
Okay, wow.
1962. So when I got in the business, my first order of pasta was 120 cartons. I rang up with the order and said, impossible, impossible. I said, why? He said, we've never sold so much. I said, well, it's all sold. I've sold a lot. They couldn't believe it.
Who were you selling to? Who was here?
Oh,
Were there
shops.
Shops? Were there restaurants?
Well, there was restaurants,
Yeah.
but yeah. Rico Damiani, Vito's restaurant near the railway station.
Because there were so many Italians, you're right. So there was,
You could take chicken and spaghetti and a glass of wine and a cup for 5 shillings, five and 5 bits. Yeah.
So did you get your 120 kilos of pasta?
Yeah, 120 cartons.
Cartons, sorry.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah, I got it, I sold it and started increasing. Then I said, I want to go as far as Innisfail, so I went as far as Innisfail. Then I went as far as Tully, selling to the shops.
Yep.
Then I went as far as Ingham, selling, and I increased the business,
So they must have been very grateful
They were,
for the
they
work
were,
that you
they
were
were,
doing up here.
They were. Then my mother-in-law, she used to work for us too. I gave her a job working casual,
Yeah.
She used to help us out.
Because was it just you and your wife up
Just
here?
me and my wife.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, no forklifts, all hand loading.
Oh my God.
Yeah. One day we received 1,000 cartons of olive oil and all hand loaded. But anyway, yeah. And in 1974, before that, he said, if somebody would build me a warehouse, I'd rent it from them. I had no money, so I started ticking. So I went to the bank, I said, I need some money, I want to build a warehouse. I said, where are you going to get the money? I said, I came here to give you first option. He said, oh. Anyway, I borrowed the money, they gave it to me.
They were a bit easier back in those days, the banks?
No, not really.
No?
Not really. And they lent me $100,000. And I brought a block of land, and I built the first warehouse, and I rented it to the boss. And then I had another, it was a block. I built one warehouse on one side, a driveway through the centre, and another one on the side. So I had the land to build another warehouse on the side. So I went to the bank, I said, well, there's no use having the land there. I said, I want to build another warehouse. So anyway, somehow or other I got the money and I built this other warehouse. And then in 1974, the election, Whitlam went in and the house fell out of everything. So I was $100,000 in debt. The boss I was working for decided to close up. 3 young kids and no money. So I was really in despair.
So he just shut shop.
He shut.
Did he give you an option if you wanted to just take over or anything?
No, because they were thieving him down in Brisbane. They sent him, you know.
Yeah, okay.
So it was really hard, eh? I didn't know what to do. So my daughter and son-in-law brought us a casket ticket. No, before this was Louis Piccone, him and the Vincent Pasquale and Nanda Macaroni, they were very big in spaghetti making in Brisbane.
Okay.
He flew up. They took me out to a restaurant for dinner. My good wife said, you go, I won't come. They brainwashed me for 4 hours, saying, you should start on your own. I said, I've got no money. You'll be right. You've got the customers. You'll be right.
Yeah.
So anyway, they took me starting on my own. I came home and my wife said, what did you decide? I said, darling, I said, well, just started something to do 3 days a week. So I started in my own shed 3 days a week.
In the warehouse that you built?
Yeah, that I built 3 days a week. My wages those days was $135 a week. In 3 days I netted $750.
What were you selling? Pasta?
Or
everything?
Everything.
Okay.
That's all right, you know. So I went to the bank to borrow some money, $26,000 I asked for. He said, well, I'd hate bank manager, but this bloke here, God bless him where he is, Mr. Cush was his name. He's a godfather to me. He's just wonderful. Anyway, I get a phone call, your loan's come through. I said, oh, thanks very much. So 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, I get another phone call. I said, oh, he must have changed his mind. You know, $100,000 in debt, no job.
And asking for more? Yeah.
He said, you cracked the big one, son. What are you talking about? Did you buy any casket ticket? Oh, I said, the wife buys them sometimes. Well, you cracked the big one, son. And crack what? Did you win the casket?
How did
I
he
said,
know?
what? He said, you won $80,000.
No.
I said, oh, bring shivers to me.
But how did he know?
Because those days, as soon as somebody won money, they were the first ones to know the banks.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, they used to be there when the thing was drawn.
And it was in your name?
Yeah. And
so winning $80,000
you know, and I said, oh, I won't need the loan now, you know. No. He said, you take the loan, you do what you got to do, and you build yourself a nice home. Because I'd lived in rubbish houses all my life. We had no money, we was just living, you know, scraps. He said, you build yourself a nice home. And this place, I brought 3 blocks of land here. They were going for $5,500 each. They said, you buy 3 blocks, we'll give you for $15,000. I brought 1 for Louis and 2 for me. And this place here cost us exactly to the T $80,000.
Far out.
You know?
You know what? You deserved that. So much.
So anyway, then Louis left school, so he came into the business.
So was the business Garozzo at this point?
Well, Garozzo agency then.
Wow.
So Rosie left school, she came in. Francis left school, they all helpless. And Lou came in, Dad, you can't run a business without a computer. Oh, Lou, where are we going to get the money? We've got no money. Now, it lasted for 5 years. Right? We borrowed the money. We bought a computer. 18 months. Dad, computer's not big enough. So it just kept going on and on. And yeah, so then we outgrew our building, which we just grew and grew and grew. We all worked hard, but
What you were doing here, that was sort of pioneering that.
yeah, then we changed it to food service, you know, supplying.
So originally you
Yeah.
were supplying just shops.
Yeah, yeah. Then
And
we-
how did the change come about to supplying restaurants? Because
well, restaurants started coming into more and more.
Yeah,
So that we saw the opportunity.
yeah.
So we're supplying shops and restaurants, and we're
Yeah.
supplying everything. Airlines, hospitals, we're supplying everything.
Because you would have been, yeah, sort of the only
Yeah,
one
well,
in the market, really.
We had a lot of competition, a hell of a lot of competition when I started. But, you
Okay.
know, bit by bit, I never forget butter portions. Butter portions. I wanted to sell butter portions, and I could not. There's to be able to cold source another opposition. She was selling them about $2 dearer than me, and selling pallet loads, and I couldn't even sell half a dozen packets. Cheaper than her. But steady, I got going, you know, till I managed to take them under, you know, and yeah, and yeah, we were supplying Cater Air, all the airlines and all.
So you went from
Nothing.
family,
Yeah.
just you
Yeah,
guys and the
yeah,
kids, to then at the
Yeah.
peak you were employing
Yeah,
hundreds,
100 staff.
over 100 staff.
Yeah. So through the business, if we sold X amount of cheese, they would give us a holiday somewhere in the world.
You were
So-
kidding.
So we every year, Louis said, he used to let us, me and my wife, good wife, take it. So we travelled all over. We went, you know, everywhere. You know, first class, like really good.
That's so
Everything
beautiful.
supplied.
Wow.
So we saw a lot of places.
And how many times do you think you went back to Italy?
To Italy,
Yeah.
only went twice, I think, 3 times. Yeah.
Oh, wow. In all
Well-
of this, you managed to also have and raise 3 children. Where in the timeline
Well,
did they...
Frances was born in Babinda,
Is Frances the oldest one?
the eldest one.
So she was born with the pineapples?
Yeah,
Back in
yeah.
the pineapple. Okay.
We lost her one day amongst the pineapples. Yeah. She was born in Babinda. Then we went to Brisbane. Rosie was born in Brisbane.
During that period there, yep.
And then we came to Cairns, and Lou was born in Cairns. So we didn't shift anymore, so we stopped.
Yeah, oh, yeah, right. They all needed to be born in a different location.
He had some rocks in the farm, and we were pulling this rock up, and my wife was on the tractor, and the tractor went right up in the air, and we had Frances in the truck because she's only young, you know. And lucky that the chains broke. If the chain hadn't snapped, the tractor would have came over on top of me, could have killed both of us. And Frances would have been in the truck at her own.
Oh my gosh.
You know, just miracles it was. Pigs and snakes, pigs used to come down from Mount Bartle Frere and eat the sugar cane. In 1956, I built a mile fence to keep the pigs out. And then in April, the cyclone came and knocked it all back.
Oh gosh.
So, yeah.
It was all just rough and hard
And it
work,
was-
wasn't it?
I had no money, so the only way I could, those days you had to have assignment to grow sugar cane.
Yeah.
So the only way I thought I could get a bit of money was sell my assignment. They said it's never been done before. I said, well, it's always the first time. So I seen a friend of mine, said, you want to buy my cane assignment? He said, I'll buy it. So I sold it to him for £3,000. And I got it through, and that kept me going, you know. It's just a matter of survival, you know. You just had to think ahead how you could survive.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just get
Yeah.
through that one stage,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
one day, that
Yeah.
one...
And after we were well established, my ex-boss came up on holidays, and he saw my setup, He said, I can't believe what I've done wrong in my life. I knew what he'd done wrong. He wouldn't pick up a carton off the floor.
Yeah.
You know, but our family would work, do anything, you know.
Yeah.
Unload trucks, work in the
yeah,
office, do
yeah.
whatever was to be done.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's getting less and less now, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
No one wants to get their hands dirty,
No.
but everyone wants to clean
Nobody.
up. Yeah.
No.
So after having lived and experienced life with so much hardship and everything that you went through, what's something that you've tried to kind of pass down to the younger generations in your family, like your grandchildren? What do you think you share with them?
You can't tell them about it, but they can't believe it, eh?
Yeah.
You tell me grandkids, but they weren't in 1 year out the other.
Yeah.
They got it too easy now, eh?
Yeah. But you know also what's interesting about that I find, especially with the Italians, the Greeks, etc., it's all that second generation that are really reaping the benefits of your hard work. And then now that's kind of diminishing a little bit. Everything you passed on, your generation passed on to the kids, they're reaping those benefits of your hard work that now, though, is...
Yeah. Well, I'm enjoying to see them enjoying it, you know?
Yeah.
It's a big carver snake, 10, 12 foot long. I used to catch them alive. Yeah, one day I was brushing some a paddock with knocking down bushes and this big roll of carver snakes. So I put him in a sugar bag and took him out. And I had him there for about 2 months. He wouldn't eat. So bloke in Brisbane advertised, I wanted to buy carver snakes. So I put him in a box and sent him down there. Thanked me very much, because if I had any more to set down, he paid me 45 shillings. That's big money those days, about a week's wages. Yeah. Another day, at night time in Bartlefree, when we had the farm, the chooks would start screaming out, singing out. My good wife said, see him, there's a snake in the fowl house. So up we get a cane knife, race in. I just grabbed the snake, chopped its head off, and my good wife says, here. I said, I've already done it, I've chopped his head off. Yeah. Now, another time I was carrying a bunch of bananas sour from the paddock. I threw it on the bench, a bloody brown snake come out of it.
Oh my gosh.
Brown snakes and death adders, well, that was another thing too, yeah. They were very bad.
Yeah, I can only
anyway,
imagine.
that was life. That was life those days.
That was life those days, and we've just got no idea.
Yeah.
I'd like to send today's 13-year-olds to run a farm on their own in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and 21-year-old be on my own. You know, I often think of it today. I don't know how I did it.
Yeah.
Sragwits were that's when I cut cane, and Gordonva, they were very good.
And who were they?
Sragwitsi, that's the farm. The farmer himself was in our gang, he cut cane, but he was good with me. Like his cooking, his wife was very good, she used to cook for us.
Do you remember anything about your original journey to Australia on the boat, on the ship?
We stopped at Massawa for 4 days in Africa,
Yeah.
hot as buggery, and I was only 1937, I was 8 years old, and they used to throw a rope up top of the boat, and then if you want anything, they tie it to the rope and you pull it up, and you could buy it off them. So I didn't realise you had to pay for it, so these blokes are throwing up the rope, and they're throwing up the soft drink. And I had a pile of soft drink up. My mother comes along and said, what are you doing with that? I said,
They're just giving us soft drink.
Yeah, they want some money. She said, where am I going to get the money? I've got no money to pay for it. So I had to tie it onto the rope and throw it back.
Send it back down. Oh.
Yeah.
45 days.
45 days to get here. Vimanali. They sunk it during the war.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. And do you remember if it was, like when you first arrived, if it was a bit of a shock for you, or do you remember?
I don't remember that much about it, but yeah, it would have been a shock to me, yeah.
And so when, in those early years, especially losing your mum and all of that, the people that looked after you, were you speaking Italian? Were you kind of still living in that Italian mentality that all those people who were fresh off the boat were? Or was it sort of immersed into Australian culture and that's it?
No, well, I had to learn. I had to learn to speak Australian.
You had to learn
I mean,
English.
I had a good teacher, Mr. Kenny. He's very good. One day he says, "Do you mind if I borrow your umbrella?" I said, "Yeah, I do." But
Oh, because you didn't know.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I thought I was saying,
No,
"Yeah,
of
take
course,
it," you know. But you know.
Because you would have rocked
Yeah,
up at
but
school.
he was
with
a
no
lovely
English.
guy. You never forget him. He taught you manners. They taught you manners those days.
Yeah.
One day he came through the gate and a bloke didn't say, "Good morning, sir." When at school he gave him a lecture. And if you'd done the wrong thing, the cane was you get 6 hits with a cane. One day my close friend, the teacher said to him, "If you don't know your homework tomorrow, Berto, you're going to get a 6er. So he went to school early in the morning, got the keys, opened up the school, got all the canes, broke them all up, threw them in the toilet, and he was safe. But the teacher's daughter knew about it, so the teacher asked him questions, he didn't know them. So he goes to get the cane, and the canes weren't there. So his daughter said, "Dad," he threw him in the toilet, broke him up. So he went down the creek, Little Mulgrave River, got half a dozen saplings, cedar saplings, brought them back, and he gave him a thrash of the poor bugger. Yeah.
But you know what? The kids had respect.
But I tell you what, today there's no respect.
No, and you're not allowed to even.
And you can't put a
push
slap
for
on
it.
them, they get
No.
the cops on you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, she had heartbreaking. They were that poor that they used to go to the scrub and collect lawyer cane and make baskets. I was poor, but they were worse. Nothing that I.
What were her parents working or?
Yeah, but there's no.
There's nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Yeah.
You can work as hard as you like, but there's just nothing.
Yeah.
And they used to make baskets, and then they'd bring them to Cairns and sell them to Lee Seng and there was that to pull the lawyer cane off the trees, take it home, clean it, and then weave it into baskets, paint them. They used to do a good job. No, she came through hard times, my poor wife.
But she was a hard worker then for the rest of her life, hey?
My wife was one of them again. She was beautiful. When I was working for Mario's, the block I brought there, McLeod Street, the house, had a big vacant block of land. And a friend of mine, Billy Costa used to have a radiator business in Cairns, gave us 6 shallot plants, only 6. And I planted them. And those 6 turned into 12. And those 12 turned into 24. And bit by bit, that backyard of mine was all shallots. And Lou was only young. I had an old car with a trailer, which I go to a poultry farm and collect the fowl dung, and I'd throw it all over the thing, and they grew beautiful. And so I found a market for them, but nobody knew. I used to do it all at night time, because at daytime I was working for the boss. So I'd come home at 5 o'clock, I'd pick the shallots in the morning before I went to work, soak them in water so it's easy to clean. Then the 2 girls, Lou wasn't even born. The 2 girls would help me clean them, and they'd get
10 cents a pound.
10 cents a pound.
Oh my God.
And then Bellbird would race upstairs with a high set hoe, watch that, and come downstairs and clean shallots again. And when I had them all clean, I'd take them to the depot, send them to Innisfail.
Yeah.
Nobody knew what I was doing. And then I used to travel then once a week. When I was working for the boss, I used to travel once a week, getting orders.
Yeah.
And when I go through, I'll collect my pay for the
For the
shallots.
shallots. Wow.
I ended up making more money out of my shallot patch than I was making out of my wages. We built the house here. Mum says, never forget, Mum said, my good wife says, come on, Louis, let's race to McLeod Street. We'll plant some shallots, we'll pay for our furniture. Louis he was only young, on the rotary hoe, got the ground ready to plant more shallots. But those
Yeah.
shallots,
And when did the shallots story end? How did that finish?
well, it ended up when I came here then.
When you left McLeod
When I
Street,
won
obviously.
when
yeah,
I won
yeah.
the $80,000.
Okay.
Business was getting too big.
But I was making up to $350 a week out of shallots when I was.
That's
was
a
only
good
getting,
side hustle
when I was
these
getting
days.
135 for my wages.
Oh my gosh.
But worked hard,
But
eh?
working, yeah,
Working
yeah.
hard, yeah. Yeah.
It's funny though, back in the day having a second job, it was, you just did it to...
But then, they say you're a lucky bastard, but, you're not lucky. The harder you work, the luckier you become.
Yeah,
If you put the effort in, you'll get there, right?
yeah. That's good advice.
Yeah.